Oh, the title learning officer can mean many things in different places, but I guess the simplest thing is that it's my job to find connections between collections and people, so I'm a link maker. Okay, the Overlord Embroidery is unique and remarkable. It's an 83 metres long textile made up of 34 embroidered panels. The idea and the cash for the project came from a man, Lord Dulverton, but the entire creative team responsible for actually making it was female. So we have a single designer for the whole embroidery, Sandra Lawrence, a young British artist who was only 22 when Lord Dulverton first asked her if she'd be interested in taking on the job of designing the embroidery. I believe it had already been turned down by a couple of much more experienced and more established male artists, perhaps because they realised how much work would be involved. Designing the panels took over 5 years of Sandra Lawrence's life, and she's a young woman who had, she didn't really know much about the Second World War, as she herself admits, so she very much learnt on the job and produced these remarkable designs as a result of a combination of research using archive photos and her artistic talents and her imagination. The team who then turned her designs into embroidered panels was based at the Royal School of Needlework in London, and this was a team of 20 embroiderers and 5 apprentice embroiderers, all of whom were female, and they were led by the redoubtable Miss Bartlett. I've met some of the embroiderers recently, and they are fantastic women, but they still refer to the head of the workroom as Miss Bartlett, never as Margaret. And these ladies were incredibly skilled hand embroiderers, and they used over 50 fabrics to create the 34 panels using a pliqué embroidery. So basically cutting up small pieces of fabric and stitching them onto a larger background piece of fabric, in this case linen. They went to huge lengths to try and replicate Sandra Lawrence's designs, so they chose their fabrics very carefully, trying to match colours and textures so that they gave the best possible representation of the designs. And they were just, the details are so tiny, you really see how skillful they were. And again, it was 5 years worth of stitching to create the embroidery. Miss Bartlett seems to have been a particularly incredible lady. She was in the Auxiliary Territorial Service, the ATS, in the war herself, and she did car and lorry maintenance. One of the embroiderers I met told me a lovely story that they had a delivery man came to the Royal School of Needlework, and he couldn't reverse his huge lorry into the allocated parking space, and they said, "Don't worry, Miss Bartlett will do it." And of course he looked a bit sceptical, so apparently he got down out of his cab. Miss Bartlett, no doubt in a very smart tweed two-piece, clambered up into the cab, and in about 30 seconds flat, first go, just reversed this enormous lorry into the parking space with pinpoint precision. So I think they were a remarkable team of ladies in many different ways. The embroidery tells the story of the D-Day landings and the Battle for Normandy, so most of the panels are taken up with figures of men in the Army, Navy and Air Force, but women do feature. In the early panels that look at Britain during the Blitz, there are women on the home front being bombed out of their houses, but there are also women playing more active military sort of linked roles. So the first women you come across are the Women's Land Army, and there's a really lovely little scene of women using pitchforks to put manure onto a lorry, and the fabric chosen to depict the manure is this lovely bobbly textured brown material, and you can almost smell the cow dung. It's wonderful. And then we have women who were in the armed services themselves. There's a scene in the control room where they're plotting the movements of the Allied planes and ships as they approach France. And then in the battle scenes themselves in Normandy, there are also women carrying out nursing roles. So they're actually in Normandy, not far from the front line, looking after the wounded service personnel. So although statistically there's far fewer women represented. I think it does give a fairly fair reflection of the variety of roles that they played and the importance of their role, both on the home front, keeping families together, keeping the home front going, but also on active service.